Hello, I'm Sally Pointer. Well, the British summer is always a bit on the drippy side. On the plus side, that means the gardens are doing really well. And look at this fantastic rhubarb that a neighbour's given me. We'll be doing all the usual culinary things, but did you know that you can also make string out of rhubarb? Join me inside, we'll have a go. So the first thing that we need to do is prepare our rhubarb. Just as you would for any culinary purposes, it's usually a good idea to peel off the outer skin. In some rhubarbs this is very stringy. This one's actually quite a nice young tender rhubarb, but it's still better to remove it for cooking, and this is the bit that we want for our string making. Comes off quite easily. Rhubarb itself is a very interesting plant. It's in the family Polygonaceae, which includes things like docks, so quite a lot of them have got fibrous elements to them. Being cultivated in Britain probably since the 18th century, and it has a very big place in Oriental medicine. So much so that during the Opium Wars in 1839, when Canton's under blockade, and the Chinese are trying to find ways to break this deadlock and persuade Britain not to send opium to China, one of the things they consider is banning the export of rhubarb to Britain. Their thinking is that without the purgative qualities of rhubarb, all these poor, worm-ridden and constipated English people would curl up and die, and this would do the trick. Sadly, of course, that didn't make the blindest bit of difference, and they worked out quite quickly that the only thing that's going to make any difference to the British sensibility at the time is affecting the imports of tea. So the rhubarb wars didn't make a great deal of difference in the long run. So that part's going to go for food later. I'll just peel one more, and then we'll have a little look at our string making material. So it's just this nice, slightly fibrous skin to the rhubarb. Some of them are very stringy, so this one's being quite nice and tender, but it's still going to work for our purposes. We only really want for string making the bits that come away nice and easily in good ribbons. There we are, I'll do the rest of that later. What we end up with are long strips of the outer bark of the rhubarb, and this is fairly fibrous. Like most cord making materials though, if we use it straight away, it's going to shrink as the moisture leaves it. So the best thing to do is split it down into finer ribbons, as many as you can conveniently manage, and put these to dry. If when you're peeling down your rhubarb, particularly at the fleshy end where you first put the knife in, you find any really juicy bits, just give those a little scrape with your thumbnail. You don't want any bits that are going to harbour too much moisture. But break that down into ribbons, put it to one side to dry. A couple of hours should do it. Now in best Blue Peter tradition, just move those. Here's some I prepared earlier. So this was peeled an hour or two ago, and if we just compare that to one of the freshly stripped bits, you can see that it's shrunk and it's gone quite nice and hair-like really. It's quite bendable. Sometimes when you're cord making you'll need to damp dried material, but I think there's enough left in here, enough moisture left in here just to make this work. So the method is exactly the same as any other cord making. If you want a step-by-step, I do have videos just on cord making. Get several strands of your cordage material and give them a good twist. Fold them in half, and from here on in it's a fairly straightforward reverse wrap. Twist, cross, twist, cross, twist, cross. Get a bit closer to the camera. I think that's in focus. Now when it becomes time to add new fibres in, I generally find the easiest way is to lay a fibre right across the bundle, keep twisting. My Fingers are going slightly pink doing this. The leaves of the rhubarb, they're not edible, but they also have uses. They contain an awful lot of oxalic acid, which is the bit that makes them quite toxic if you did happen to eat them. But that also makes them very useful as a mordant or a dye assistant. So it is a very interesting plant with lots of different uses to it. So laying in new fibres, twisting, crossing, twisting, crossing, adding new bits as necessary. And I'll probably finish this little bit and come back to you in a moment to show you what the end result is. I'm just putting the very last few twists into my piece of cordage. I've used just the bark from one stalk for this little test piece, and my end result is probably 16 inches long perhaps. It's always nice to see what general yield you get. It's a very attractive pink colour, and I think that will last quite well when it's dried. It's fairly strong too. I probably wouldn't do anything too seriously load bearing with it, but as a nice novel addition to my cordage collection, that's been a lot of fun to work on. Thank you very much to the suggestion to do so. I hope we've inspired you to have a go at making cordage out of something that normally gets thrown away. And if your rhubarb's doing well in the garden at the moment, try it out. Let me know how you get on.